Okay, I really do apologize if my lighting is bad. And excuse that bag in the background. That's my laundry bag. But okay, this is so random, and like I'm gonna make this. No, I'm not gonna make it quick because I need to chop this up so where I can get where I'm coming from. But y'all, let me tell y'all. So okay, I've been reading First Kings, and basically First Kings, you know, I was so interested to read it because, you know, my coach had told me, like, I've been basically saying like that. What was I saying? Oh, I was basically talking to my coach, you know, not too long ago, and I was basically saying like, I always tell myself like, the Old Testament is just be like so hard to read, like I can't get through the Old Testament, it's just so hard, all that other stuff, you know, all these excuses, because I ain't gonna lie, like, you know, when it comes to the Old Testament, you got history, you got all these branches of the family members, and the son of the daughter, the son, 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 the son. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And then you got people messing up, God taking people's heads off, like all of these things that happen. It just be like, dang, do I really want to read this? You get what I'm saying? But when it comes to the New Testament, you know, when Jesus in the picture, you like all this good stuff he doing, all the like that stuff interesting, you know, the parables, like, you know, all these things that align with what I'm going through, like all of that. But I had to eventually learn that, you know, like obviously the whole Bible collectively, you know, works together, so I can't do one and not have the other. You get what I'm saying? So this is my first time doing this, but I just had to talk about it because I'm just like, dang, like this just came to me so quick, and I was just sitting here studying First Kings. So just a quick like rundown real quick. So after like talking about Solomon and like all these other kings that, you know, that basically was doing all the wrong things as far as like worshiping all these idols, you know, implementing the wrong things that do not stem from how God wants them to orchestrate, you know, the kingdom, this and the third, like we get to who am I talking about? Elijah, you know, the prophet. I heard this story so many different times about, you know, Elijah going out to this widow in Zarephath. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but basically he goes to this widow in Zarephath, and he goes to her asking, you know, for some food, and basically she basically tell him like, all in all, like, I don't got nothing, like, and this little thing of bread, and it's, you know, it's just really barely enough to eat for me and my son, you know, and after we eat it, we gonna die. That's why I say die like that. So basically, yeah, so Elijah basically told her, like, you know, can you bring me a little jar of water and, you know, a piece of bread? And she was just saying like, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug, and I'm making a few sticks to take home and make a meal for me, myself, and my son, and that we may eat it, and then we're gonna die. Let me just backtrack. So yes, I've heard that story so many different times, but I've never like took heed into it. Like, I'm just like, okay, she did a good deed. Like, he went, asked for something, she had doubt that, you know, she don't even have enough to even give him something, better yet, even something to provide for her and her own son, this and the third. Elijah spoke some knowledge to her, told her, if you do this, that God will provide for you this way, boom, boom, bow, bow, bow. She was able to provide for both, everybody was able to eat, boom, right? Like, that's how I perceived that story. I didn't really look too much into it. I just did hear it all the time, like, oh, okay, she did a good deed, she didn't think that was gonna be able to happen because she didn't have much. Elijah told her that God was gonna do this, and it happened, boom, you know. Let me tell y'all what I just picked up from studying. So I'm gonna backtrack. Elijah really had to exercise faith, you know. And right now I haven't finished the book of Kings, so if something happened after this and I'm over here saying all these different things and I don't know, I didn't finish it yet, so bear with me. I'm just telling you what I'm reading right now. Let me go back to my notes, because I don't want to miss nothing. Basically, like what I was reading, like Elijah really is just showing like what it really means to trust God in the midst of whatever. And this is why. So first I'm gonna start, so like the first thing I wrote down was like the brook and Cherith. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I'm telling y'all, if I'm pronouncing anything wrong, cut me some slack, like bear with me. So when Elijah get first introduced to us, basically, you know, he tells us how he went to King Ahab. Ahab? Is it Ahab?
His arch nemesis was the northern king Ahab and his king.
Elijah go to Ahab and tell him, you know, that as long as God lives, you know, there's not going to be any rain or dew on this ground. Like, with that being said, like, knowing when we read, knowing that there's not going to be any type of rain, no type of nothing on this land until it said, God told Elijah basically, like, you know, go out here, you know, I'm going to provide food for you from the ravens, and I'm going to supply you with water through a stream or like a brook, right? So with no question, like, Elijah goes to do so. Like, he moved to wherever he went to the place that God told him to go to, and the ravens was, you know, providing food for him, and that stream or that brook, so to say, was his source of water. The brook then dries up, right? So hear me out. So let me just tell y'all this, because it's about to get good. Soon as the brook dries up, that's when God basically told him, like, let me go to it, make sure I'm all right. God told him, like, to get up, you know, and to go, and that when he gets there, it's going to be a widow there that he's going to go up to, that she's going to provide food and something for him to eat. You know, she's going to provide the things that he needs at this current moment in this state, right? Let me tell y'all what my notes and my little studies, like, let me tell y'all what I just found out. Like, when our brook dry up, we be so quick to think that's it, right? But that's not what it's supposed to be. First of all, the brook was something that was already orchestrated by God. Why? Because it was his source of water to Elijah. That was something that was orchestrated, and that was already in God's hands. The brook was to be a source of water for Elijah, right? How was that able to be a source of water for Elijah when the land was dried up? Because it was orchestrated by God. The same way how the brook was orchestrated by God when it was supplying water, it was the same way it was orchestrated by God when it dried up. So therefore, God can use that dried up brook to move him to somewhere else. You get what I'm saying? If you consider your brook and you feel like it dried up, that doesn't mean that everything that God had orchestrated from you is over and done with. No, that means that when your brook dries right here, as soon as this brook right here dries, God is going to move you somewhere else where he can utilize you. It's like, as soon as the brook dried up, God immediately told him, like, oh yeah, go here, and when you go here, boom, you're gonna be supplied with more food. Like, all in all, we can take away from that is, regardless of the matter, regardless of where we at, regardless of what it is, God is going to supply for us regardless, and he's going to always supply to us in different ways, not in one way. And I think we get confused by that. Like, and we can use the brook being dried up as an example of God supplies in different ways. We can learn that God has more ways of doing things, you know. So when the brook dried up, you think God was just like, well, Elijah, you out of luck, you stuck here. No, he literally said, okay, well, now I'm gonna move you here, and this is another way that I'm gonna provide for you. And I kind of like gave me reassurance, because like, when one thing was once working in your life at one period of time, it worked for that certain moment. That doesn't mean it's gonna carry you on for the rest of your life. That don't mean it's gonna work for the next season, you know. And this may sound cliche, but it's accurate now. You know, when people say that old keys can't, you know, open new doors, that's facts. Like, for something that helped you in one season, that doesn't mean that's gonna help you in the other season. Yes, it may for a little while, but that's not gonna be forever, you know, especially if it's not in God's will. And I think sometimes what I had put in my notes, that I had took up from this commentary, basically, like, we can't get fixed up on the means of his supply, meaning that yes, God is going to supply us with all these things that we need, that he knows that we need, but we can't get fixated on it, meaning we can't rely on it, because although God does not change, but the way he do things will change. When God blesses us, when he provides for us, that he doesn't provide and bless us in only one way. He does that in many different ways. And I think sometimes we get too caught up and we focus on the blessings, and we focus on the seasons that we are in right now. We focus on the supply that he given us for one season, and we stick with that one thing, and we don't allow ourselves to recognize that, okay, yeah, this is gonna be for me right now and my next season, because I know that God gonna have something different, probably even better, you know. If we focus too much on the things that's going on in the past, or if we focus too much on the things that once helped us before, we're not going to be able to recognize what God is producing now, or producing for our future. If we sit here and we focus too much on the things that once used to work out for us, then that's how we lose sight of God, because then it's just like dang, you just focusing on this one thing that I provided for you for this specific season, and you're not even focusing on me anymore, and recognizing that I'm a God that's gonna provide in many different ways. You know, that I'm not this stationary God. I just don't provide in one way. I'm not just a one and done. It could have been possibility that, you know, Elijah knew eventually that his brook was gonna dry up, because he literally just told the king that there's not gonna be no source of water. Say if that was like the case scenario, that he knew that was gonna happen. Whatever the case may have been, like, it just shows that Elijah had to exercise his faith in God, because that one thing that was once providing for him, it had dried up. So now he had to get situated with the fact, like, okay, now I gotta allow God to move and move me in a different way now. But it's still, he's moving me in a different way, but he's still supplying what I need, you know? Like, although he didn't know what her response was going to be, or he didn't know what her condition was, he didn't know if he was going to go to a rich widow, he didn't know if he was going to go to a poor widow, he didn't know who he was coming across. All he knew was he was going to go to Zarephath and meet this widow that was going to provide for him. Why? How did he know that? Although he didn't know what circumstances she was in or what it was, he knew that she was going to provide. Why? He knew that because God solely told him that, and that just shows where his faith comes in, you know? Like, that's just crazy to me. Like, so basically, all in all, like, when I was just like thinking about that, like, I just basically, like, the key takeaway that I learned about that I really want to talk about, like, in the midst of what we're going through right now, or stuff that we may have right now that's good, or say we got stuff going right now that's a wreck, like, all in all, good or bad, God is going to have a way. Like, earlier today, you know, my Bible study with some brothers and sisters in Christ, we were just talking about Jeremiah 29 verse 11, how that verse is taken out of context a lot. And I was thinking about, like, yeah, it really is taken out of context, because we look at the prosper, or plans to give you a future, plans to not harm you. Like, we look at those things and we just thinking like that means like, oh, God got us for the good, you know, I ain't gonna go through no bad thing, I'm gonna be straight. Like, no, that's not what he's saying. I think we overlook the word plans, because I think plans is like mentioned like 3 times or 4 times in that verse specifically. He's not saying that you're not gonna have troubles. God is not saying that. Basically what he is saying, you're gonna go through these things, you're gonna have troubles, you're gonna go through all things, but in the midst of these things, I still have a plan. And this connects to Elijah. Yes, I have water for you right now that's coming out of a brook, but now that this brook is dried up, this is the part where the stuff goes bad. The stuff that was once working for us no longer work no more. But once that brook dried up, now I have somewhere else different, but it's still going to be the same supply that I know that you need. I'm sorry, I'm just all over the place. But the things that go on, or things that once was working and they no longer work anymore, that doesn't mean that God's done with you. That doesn't mean that God's will is over with. Like, no, it just means that, okay, this thing that I was working for you in this season is this book is like, this chapter is closed. Now I'm finna open the book to this new chapter that I want you to walk into, you know? And me personally, like, even me, like, when it come to track, when I wrote down in my notes from the commentary, it basically said, like, God has more than one way of supplying what you need. This is big to think about, you know. When it comes to track, I literally have to think about the brook drying up, and especially the season that I've been going through. Like, y'all, while being here as a freshman, you know, running track, it's been moments where I feel like I didn't perform my best. It's been moments where I feel like I could have did more of that I didn't do, you know. Like, it's been times where I've ran times that I wasn't satisfied with, and I feel like I could have pushed for more. Like, all these different things. It was so many moments where I'm just like, ugh, like, I could have did this, I could have did this, I wish it would have went this way, this and the third, da 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 da. It would be so easy for me to get in this mindset that, you know, dang, what's going on? Like, am I doing something wrong? Like, what do I need to fix? Like, what's this, what's that? What I was so curious of trying to figure out my why, or what it is, or what's going to happen, this and the third. And I'm comparing myself to my high school era. Like, what I'm doing right now, my freshman year in college, I was comparing it to how I was performing my senior year. Oh, winning this, winning that, times dropping like this. College is okay. You win some, you lose some. You PR in some races, you don't PR in some races. And I was getting I got so fixated in my season of my senior year of God supplying for me mentally and physically. Mentally, I had a good mental. I come into my races feeling confident. You know, I knew that I had the ability to go and do this. And physically, winning, PRing, you know, having a nice workout regime, like all these different things that was working for me my senior year. I got so fixated up on that supply for that season, and I upset myself when I'm in this new season because the things that I used to do wasn't working for me anymore, and I just didn't understand it. Like, I just thought that I was lacking something, but whole time this is a different season. I can't use the things that God once used for me in my one season and try to use it in this season. No, that was my brook dried up in that season. That season is done with. Now this is where I'm in Zarephath now. Like, now I'm in a new season where I have to listen to God, follow him, and understand, like, okay, Zari, this is what I need you to do. Zari, you're gonna do this in this season. You know, it may not look good right now. You may not understand what I'm working on right now, but later you will get it. You know, that's all in us. That's what's been going on. I was clinging so much on to my past. I was clinging so much on to how I was performing, you know, back in high school. And it's like, for what? Like, why am I doing that? Literally, why? Like, it's no reason for me to be doing that, because it's like, that brook is dried up. And when I say that brook dried up, also another thing, like, I want to put my own input. Like, when I read that the brook dried up, just because it dried up, that don't mean that God's hand was never on it. For one, let me just put that up. Just because that chapter closed, just because that season was over with, that don't mean that it was never in God's hand. It don't mean that it was never in God's control. Think about it. That brook was once a source of water to Elijah. How was that brook able to be a source of water to Elijah? Because God orchestrated it at some point. So when chapters close in our life, when things are over that once was working, I'm sorry if I feel like I'm repeating the same thing, but I promise you I'm not. I'm just using a different context. Like, what was I saying? Yeah. Just because something closed up or something over with, that don't mean God's hand was never on it. That don't mean that, oh, God just saw. Or even if it's like, let's think about it in the sport realm. Like, if you was winning all the time and now you just feel like you struggling to win, me myself, that don't mean that God done with you. That don't mean that, oh, in the past, like, that was just my doing and God was just like, oh, okay, that's cool, like, just sitting there kicking it. No, like, God orchestrated all these things. You know, that brook that he once had opened and now closed, he orchestrated that. Just because it closed, it don't mean that it was never orchestrated by him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just shows that God has different ways to supply to us. Like, yes, God does not change at all. Nothing about him changed, but the way he supplies for us, the way he sit here and give us what we need or give us these blessings, he does it in so many different ways. You know, my spiel, like I said, this is my first time doing this, but it was just on my heart. Like, I'm just like, dang, like, I just learned this and it kind of gave me motivation, like, about your brook drying up. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm gonna wrap this up because I don't want to make it too long, but if any time in the season of your life where you feel like your brook dried up, that don't mean that God is finished at all. That don't mean that he's done with you. That don't mean that you even did anything to him. That don't even mean that you did something to mess that up. It just means that, okay, your brook dried up, now I have something different for you. That's all that is. So it's all good, whether it's you like losing the opportunity, a job, like I said, if you've been in a job so long you eventually get fired, or eventually you just don't have the same interest that you had at one point and now that book is closed. Or, for example, sport, you get injured, you fall out of love for your sport, or granted you want to do another sport, whatever you could think. There's so many different scenarios I could pull, but all in all, I'm just saying that to say this, that when one brook dries up, that doesn't mean that's it for us. No, it just means that, okay, God is about to move us in a different season. That's all that is. And as much as I'm trying to preach that to you, I have to preach that to myself, you know, because in a moment, yes, it's hard to believe it. It's hard to think like, dang, like, I'm about to get provided in another way. But it's like, but that's where your faith come in, because it's just like, how do I know I'm about to get provided another way if I don't know what it is? And I think that's sometimes where we get stuck in the unknown and the fear of unknown. But we get so stuck in the fear of the unknown, but we use the wrong F. Like, no, we're not supposed to be having fear when it's unknown. You know, where your understanding ends, like when you don't understand anything or don't know what's going on, that's when your faith should come in. Because, you know, I told Thomas, you know, obviously, you know, when Jesus died And he rose up. I was listening from a sermon, like, when he came to the disciples, they saw him, this and a third, da, 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 da. And when they went back and told Thomas, he basically said, like, no, like, I need to see his hands, I need to see his side, like, I need to see it to believe it type stuff, you know. And when Jesus came to him and he presented himself in the way that he was seeing he needed to see, he believed. And basically Jesus said, like, because you have seen me, you believe, but blessed are those who have not seen but yet still believe. Like, you know, that's what faith is. We have not seen, or we don't know, but yet we still believe. Why? Because we know we deal with a God who's not gonna let us down, who, if he did something once before, he can do it multiple ways. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I'm sorry y'all if I ventured off, but yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Like, don't freak out if your brook dries up. You know, if your brook dries up, you good. You just about to go to Zarephath. Like, what? But no, for real. Like, that's all I wanted to say. Just to finish this out, don't cling on to what God blessed you with in the past. Because if we do that, we're gonna miss what's ahead of us. All right? That's all I got to say. That's what I want to talk about. And yeah.